Hello, welcome to my channel, and for my subscribers, welcome back. Today we are making golden and crisp homemade graham crackers. And when I say homemade, I mean entirely from scratch. These graham crackers are great for a crust to make key lime pie or cheesecake, or they can be eaten as a snack. So we're going to start with adding 2 cups of whole wheat flour to a bowl, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, ½ teaspoon of iodized salt, which is table salt, and lastly a ½ tablespoon of ground cinnamon. And once we add these ingredients, we're going to whisk the ingredients until they're combined. And then once we're done whisking the dry ingredients, we're going to move the bowl out of the way and bring over our bowl for our wet ingredients. And we're going to add a ½ cup of melted unsalted butter to the bowl. And then we're going to add 1/2 cup of light brown sugar, as well as 1/2 cup of white granulated sugar. And what we're going to do next is whisk the butter and sugar together until creamed, which should take approximately 30 seconds. Now we're going to add 1/4 cup of whole milk, and we're going to whisk that until combined, which should take another 30 seconds. Now we're going to add a ½ tablespoon of vanilla extract, and again we're going to whisk that until combined, another 30 seconds. And finally we're going to add 1/4 cup of honey. And once we finish adding this, we're going to whisk it until combined as well for another 30 seconds. Okay, and now once our wet ingredients are combined, we're going to bring our dry ingredients back over. And then what we're going to do next is combine our wet and dry ingredients. So what I'm doing is I'm pouring the wet ingredients into the bowl with the dry ingredients. And if you notice, I'm using the plastic spatula as well. And what I'm doing is folding the wet and dry ingredients together just until combined. You want to be careful not to overmix it, because too much air will get into the graham crackers and then the graham crackers won't bake properly. Okay, so now we're going to lightly coat our surface, and then we're going to knead the dough for approximately 15 seconds, just until everything is combined. And then we're going to divide the dough into 2 halves. I'm using a bench cutter to divide the dough. You can use a piece of cutter or a knife, it's up to you. Now I'm going to take 1/2 of the dough and place it on top of parchment paper. And I'm going to flatten the dough as much as I can with my hands. You notice I have on gloves. And I'm going to form it into a rectangle. And I'm going to lightly coat the top of the dough with flour, and I'm going to place another sheet of parchment paper on the dough. Now I'm using the rolling pin. I'm going to use a rolling pin now to flatten the dough. Now you want to be sure the dough is as thin as possible once you flatten it. It should be as thin as a piece of paper. And the reason for this is because once you put the graham crackers in the oven and the baking soda is activated, the graham crackers are going to puff up. And if they get too puffy, they're not going to bake properly. They're going to come out more like cookies. So you want them to be as thin as you want the dough to be as thin as possible before you put it in the oven and bake it. So what I'm doing now is removing the parchment paper, and you notice how careful I'm going about it. And that's why I put the flour on top, to ensure the parchment paper didn't stick to the dough. And now I'm using my bench scraper again, and what I'm doing is I'm dividing the dough into 6 even crackers. You should be able to get 6 crackers out of each half of the dough. And you can use a ruler as well if you choose to ensure you get straight, even lines. I chose not to. You can also use a knife or a box cutter as well. I'm sorry, a knife or a pizza cutter. And I'm also removing the excess dough from the parchment paper as well. You don't want to bake the excess dough with it. Now I will say this as a fair warning, I sped up this part for the purpose of this video. However, this is a very tedious step in the process. It's going to take some time, and that's to ensure you get the crackers as thin as possible and that they're cut out as evenly as possible. So it's going to take some time. It's a very tedious step, but it's well worth it in the end. Just pack your patience. So now I'm placing the dough on the baking sheet, and I'm going to cut off any excess parchment paper as well, because I have too much parchment paper. You know, you don't want too much parchment paper because then the crackers aren't going to bake properly, you know, because there's too much parchment paper. Now I'm going to cover the dough with plastic wrap, and I'm going to chill in the refrigerator for 1 hour. I've taken the dough out of the refrigerator, and I'm going to remove the plastic wrap from the baking sheet as well. And once I get finished removing the plastic wrap, we're going to decorate / poke holes in our crackers. So first I'm going to use a knife to make one vertical line and one horizontal line on top of the crackers. And it will form a cross on the crackers once you're done. And next I'm going to use a fork to poke holes into the crackers. And this will also prevent the crackers from puffing up as much as they will if you didn't poke holes into them. That allows a lot of the air that builds up in the crackers to escape easily. And I'm using the knife to fully separate the crackers as well before putting them in the oven, because they'll lean on each other to puff up even more if they're not fully separated. So I'm going to bake in the oven for 350 degrees. If you have thin crackers, you want to cook for 12 to 15 minutes. If you have thick crackers, you're going to cook for 18 to 22 minutes. And you notice I'm separating them once more with a knife because they will stick together while baking. And you're going to allow them to cool for approximately 30 minutes once you take them out of the oven to bring them up to room temperature. They will harden as they sit and cool to room temperature. And there you have it, homemade graham crackers. Not as hard as it seems, tedious, but not hard, and well worth it in the end. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you again for watching.